It's the Score North Twin Show.
All right, Score North Extra Innings, live from Progressive Field. Extra Innings is live at the ballpark here in Cleveland. Twins dropped the opener against the Cleveland Guardians last night because of some late heroics from Jose Ramirez and a little bit of offensive letdown, which has continued for the Twins. Alex Wested's back at the home front at the Score North studios. Excited to bring you Extra Innings today. You can hit the like button, hit the subscribe button for Minnesota Twins content. Kind of the lead talk here, obviously, Alex, is yesterday we knew that Byron Buxton was going to return to the Twins by tomorrow. He was in the clubhouse and everything was good there. But I think the bigger question is how long and how much can they get from Byron Buxton? So I asked Rocco Baldelli about the workload plan, because if you remember, Buck played in 24 of the first 25 games. And obviously that was good. Everyone loves that Bucks was able to play. However, the Twins had like 5 off days in the first 3 weeks of the season. So because of those off days, it allowed Byron Buxton to, yes, in theory, play 24 of the first 25 games, but also there was those built-in off days to make things easier. So I asked Rocco is that plan going to change in terms of how, they're going to use him. And he basically clarified that they're obviously going to play a lot of lefties here coming up. So he's going to be in the lineup for sure against lefties, but you're probably not going to see him play 24 of 25 games. He said a reasonable goal is for at least this week, get him in the lineup against left-handed starters for those first three games here in the next week or so. Probably some more mixed in off days, but you probably should not expect Byron Buxton to play again 24 out of 25 games. They need to keep their center fielder healthy. So Byron Buxton is back, but I do think eventually we're going to see a little bit of a different workload than we saw to start the season.
Well, I think, Declan, it's a return to a lineup that's been desperately needed for a Twins offense that has really struggled in his absence. You look at the home series against the Yankees this year, where you go out and you put no runs on the board in back-to-back games. Even last night's game against Cleveland, too, where you're going against a starter in Tristan McKenzie that you've had success against in the past, but you still haven't been able to put those runs on the board. Byron, in his AAA rehab stint, he went 0 for 6, but he's still trying to work on things, figure things out. The difference between him and Austin Martin, just in batting average alone, 250 was Byron before he went on the injured list. And then, of course, Austin Martin had some spurts of success, but batted .218 in his time with the Major League club. I think that adding Buxton back into the offensive side of this lineup is going to help, but I don't think you can bring him in and play him in center field, even arguably put him at the designated hitter spot frequently in this lineup until we know he's fully healthy. Looking at what the Twins have coming up here, Logan Allen, the left-handed pitcher today, you want him in the lineup against those left-handed pitchers. Next week, you get 3 against Washington, where 2 of the stars are probably going to be Patrick Corbin in game 1 on Monday, and then probably Jake Irvin, who is a Minnesota native. He was born and raised in Bloomington, where you want to start working him in, but then you get Texas. You get Kansas City after that, where if you can put him at designated hitter, get him some platoon time, maybe take him out of the game later on if the game has been decided one way or the other. I think you have to be very cautious with Byron Buxton, considering what his health has been in the past, where fans are concerned about the health of Byron Buxton. If he can stay on the field, as we know historically, this is a game-breaking player who is a 5-tool player on the same page as a Mike Trout, an Ohtani minus the pitching part. You have to keep Byron Buxton healthy, and you have to keep him on the field. And Twins fans, rightfully so, since Byron joined the team in 2015, have been concerned about his health. So making sure to platoon him, keeping him healthy, giving him those extra off days to find that strength. That's something that's going to be really important for the Twins as they go into June, July, and August.
Yeah, and at the plate, so I've definitely been probably a little bit more critical than at least Mackie and Judd, and maybe siding sometimes more with Twins fans to a degree. I just don't think Buck is the type of player that should be batting 3rd or 4th in a lineup. He's strikeout heavy. He's very streaky too. And he just isn't a player that I think you can expect to be batting 3 or 4 anymore. Now, not saying he can't be a contributor to the lineup. I still think he brings a lot of pop. We know his power is still pretty legit, but I do think he's a guy that probably should be batting 6th or 7th in an order. And his biggest strong suit is obviously playing defense and playing in center field. The DH plan last year kind of didn't work. It was a borderline disaster. And it also really pigeonholed the rest of the lineup construction, because the only way to play Buck last year was to DH him. And Rocco also touched on that the fact of he can play center now, it makes life so much easier to build out that lineup, right? Like you don't have a logjam, one player that only can DH, and then you have a bunch of good players who could be playing and starting in that lineup. And unfortunately, they're kind of stuck where they now have to, be limited and have good players on the bench. So in general, I do think he should probably be batting 6th. I think he's hitting 3rd or 4th tonight on Saturday. Playing center field against Cleveland, they are playing the lefty. To Rocco's point, you want that righty versus lefty matchup. But I also don't expect when they do play a righty for him to be batting that high. I know there's some hierarchy, and he's a veteran player, but he's just probably not a player either that should be batting that high in the lineup. Not really your thoughts on that, but.
Well, and I think when you look at how both of the managers that Byron has been a part of since coming up to the major league team in Minnesota, you look at how Paul Molitor managed him, and you look at how Rocco Baldelli manages him. I agree with you. I think Byron needs to be lower down in the lineup. In his early part of the career, he had the speed where you could put him in the 1 and the 2 spot when he gets on base because he had that great base stealing potential. Now, as he starts to get older and he starts to get more advanced into his career, I think that 7, 8, 9 spot wouldn't be a terrible spot for him. Does he have speed? Of course he still has speed. But in terms of generating offense, you want that top part of the lineup to really set the tone for the rest of the lineup. Byron had that when he was early on and when he was coming up through the Twins farm system, but he hasn't been able to prove that consistently because of his health. And so for me, 6, 7, 8, 9, that's a perfect spot for me to put Byron Buxton into the lineup, because then you have a weapon that we know has a high ceiling that you can put at the bottom of the lineup. And then let's say he goes on a hot streak. Well, then Rocco can start to play around with him a little bit. You can move him up to the lineup if he's hitting well. But the third hole, that 4th spot, I don't think that's a good spot to put him starting out based on what we've seen of him over his career.
Sorry, muted. He's a game-changing player, I believe. That's the word you use at the top here, Alex, where, yes, his speed and the element he can bring, it's incredible. But his strongest asset going forward is playing center field. And look, there's been some defensive miscues here. I think some old-timey baseball, or if you've coached at any youth or high school, or if you've been a baseball coach at all, you've been probably pulling your hair out if you're a Twins fan, watching the defensive miscues that have happened this week. And that's not Buxton. Buxton does not have that issue. So the fact he can also play that elite center field is humongous. He gets the balls that just, frankly, most outfielders can't. He can get those 50-50 balls that dropped in for base hits against the Yankees that are going to be in the glove of Byron Buxton. So that part's also huge. On the base pass, because he's obviously got a lot of speed, I don't expect, and Rocco kind of clarified this too, I don't really expect him to be that much of a threat on the bases. And by that, I mean not stealing second, not stealing bags. I think that just is going to aggravate things. I know that's frustrating. Not to say he's going to never steal, but I think they're being very cautious here, and they don't want to put him in a predicament where he could, again, re-aggravate that knee. That is a chronic issue for him. So another kind of point of clarification there. I wouldn't expect Buck to go out there and be stealing and swiping bags, at Ella De La Cruz rate right now, but also they need to protect him at all costs. So his speed can still be an asset. If they can bump and move him over, obviously a hit to the gap is going to score him mostly from second every single time. It can score him from first. So don't expect either Byron Buxton, I think, to be stealing a lot of bags when he's back with the Twins.
And that, I think, too, Declan, is one of the big things that we saw about Byron Buxton early on in his career. His center fielding was reckless to a point where the way that he would drift back for a ball, the amount of times where he would collide with that center field wall would raise a lot of Twins fans' concerns because of just how recklessly he played the position. He wanted to be that Kirby Puckett type defensive player, but he wasn't able to actually do that because he can't stay healthy when he makes defensive plays. Think about the tenure of his career where the majority of the injuries have been because of either base running miscues or because of how he fields the position in center field. Is it exciting? Absolutely. But right now, the Twins need, as they need at the end of last season in the playoffs against Houston, the Twins need Byron Buxton healthy. And give him credit. He's made a great adjustment in terms of playing smarter defensively in the field since the 2019 season, but he still needs to be able to make sure that he is in the roster and he's on the field, because that's when Byron makes the best impact for this Twins team to be able to win the division, make a postseason run, and be a team that Minnesota fans can truly feel excited about. The last time I think about that was the 2019 team in the Bomba squad, because Byron Buxton largely stayed on the field. And so if he can figure out how to do that and play, I know there's incentives in his contract to do that, but if he can play 130, 140 games in a season, then watch out, because Byron Buxton may have a career year if and when that happens.
Yeah, that's huge. Yeah, if he's in the field, it makes life so much easier. I think we should probably have a little bit of limited expectations, maybe at the plate. This is also a Twins offense recently, Alex, that has been hitting the ball actually pretty hard, but they're hitting them at people. They're hitting a bunch of those atom balls. They're hitting balls that defensive players are also making tremendous plays on. Alex Verdugo put on a clinic in left field this week. You saw the great turns from Jose Ramirez at the end of the field yesterday too. I know he had the heroic home run, but eventually you'd think that some of these atom balls, some of these hard hit balls are going to drop in. And even though Buck has some inconsistencies at the plate, I think adding that element of a guy who is streaky, that can pull a ball down the line, that can also go to the gap against a lefty to a degree too. I think just getting him back, there is the sigh of relief and the sigh of, oh, we have Buck back in the lineup. I can sense obviously how much he means to this team and his teammates. And I think just that presence alone, maybe that's, the missing piece here that explodes the offense for maybe a 10-hit game and a multi-run game where they feel comfortable with their offense. Because right now, the Twins offense has been its biggest problem. The starting pitching has not been a problem over this losing streak that they're on right now. I know there's a little bit of bullpen miscues, but again, that chunk of pie, that why the Twins have lost games this year, it has the biggest chunk. It might be not 100%. The biggest chunk is the offense has not been able to string enough consistent at-bats. Hopefully Buck is able to kind of spark that and provide that for them.
Well, I think that when you think about Buxton again, you're looking for the glue guys on the team. And for his career, you think about the teams that did really well when he was healthy most of the season, the Kepler, the Buxton, and to an extent, Eddie Rosario teams, where that outfield was the glue for that team. It created such an environment and such an excitement, right? When they're in the outfield and they're playing games together, that it's difficult for them to play where you have, and no shame to a Willie Castro or a Manny Margot, but it's just not the same when you're not having your stars out there in the outfield like they need to be. We've talked before about Trevor Larnach and the impact he's made on this team as he's come back up and really made a significant role. Alex Kirilloff has played some outfield, but I personally would prefer him at first base, switching with Carlos Santana as needed. But you need Buxton back. That's plain and simple. And to go back again, this starting pitching crew has been phenomenal, especially in the month of May here. You look what Bailey Ober's done, who gets to start tonight in Cleveland, and of course, Chris Paddock tomorrow afternoon. When you look at Bailey Ober's body of work since April 22nd, he's led the league in batting average. He's led the league in earned run average, where this is an opportunity where I'm talking about a must-win game. This has to be a must-win game. You can't really fault last night on Joan Duran, because when you look at those pitches where Twins fans were upset, well, that should have been a called strike. That should have been a called strike. The home run pitch by Jose Ramirez was a borderline perfect pitch that Duran would take 10 times out of 10. It just so happened that Ramirez caught just enough of it, made a great barrel contact to fly that ball out of Progressive Field. And, if I'm Rocco Baldelli, I'm throwing Duran back in there tonight if I can. There's a lot of bullpen usage where the Twins used a lot of their good arms yesterday, but there's a lot of those fringe relievers that are sitting in that bullpen today looking to make an appearance. If this game gets quickly in Minnesota's favor, you want to be able to set up something where you can get into that back half of the rotation, because with Chris Paddock, you don't know what you're going to get. Chris Paddock tomorrow, his ERA on the road this season is about 9.5. And so going into the end of this series and knowing you're not going to play Cleveland again until early August, these next two games become pivotal for whatever direction the Twins are going to go on the rest of the year.
Yeah, the starting pitching, and Paddock, is a little bit of a wild card there. Simeon Woods Richardson put together a very good start yesterday. With Bailey Ober, also, this is just something I've noticed, and I really only noticed this today and yesterday when I was in the Guardians clubhouse, or at the Twins clubhouse here at Progressive Field where they're playing the Guardians. He is a crazy student of everything he's trying to learn with his pitching zone, with opponent tendencies. Certainly not suggesting that other pitchers aren't, but I've never really seen a pitcher have so much just information in front of him. He has his own notebook that he's writing things down on. So the prep that he has made has obviously made this huge jump for him. Yes, he had the disastrous opening start in Kansas City, but to your point, Alex, yeah, he's been one of the best starting pitchers in baseball since that start. And yeah, the Twins kind of need him to be a stopper for them. The offense, has struggled, but I think what Bailey Ober has seen, you've seen that next step. And you've kind of touched on this a little bit, but the Twins just can't afford to continue to get into these tailspins. They got into a tailspin to start the year in the first 18 games. They're trying to snap a losing streak here on Saturday against the Guardians. They have to go on the road, play the Nationals next week as well. You just don't want to see them continue to go into these inconsistent, streaky ways. And if the Twins are indeed going to, be a playoff team, they have to play more consistent baseball. And it is somewhere too, by the way, in the middle. It's not them winning 12 games in a row, which was obviously fun, and winning streaks are great, but it's probably, it's winning 3 out of 4. It's stringing together 4 out of 5. It's, being okay with a loss here and there, because it's 162 games and it's a grind of baseball, but losing, 4 in a row, which, they've kind of been on right now. They can't afford the long losing streaks, because that's what's going to kill them in the standings. They were a half game back entering that Yankees series, and here they sit I believe, 3.5 games back to start Saturday's game. So you just see how quickly a swoon like that can change your reality and your pecking order in the Central Division. And yeah, they just can't afford another swoon to happen.
And I think the big thing, too, when you look at it, you're 3.5 games back at Cleveland entering play today, but you're also 2 games behind Kansas City. Sure, you get the Royals over Memorial Day, but these, again, divisions are not won and lost in April and May, but they certainly have the ability to tell you where your season's going to go. We think about during that 12-game win streak that the Twins were on earlier this month, it was a comparison to the 2011 team that won 11 in a row. And everybody said, it was the big hashtag it's happening moment, where you had the opportunity to consider that in 2011, that team was on an upward trajectory, and then they plummeted the back half of the season. Right now, you take that win streak. If the Twins lose today, it's not just 2 5-game losing streaks and a winning streak of 12. They're 12-10 over those contests. And so in terms of thinking about consistency, the rule of thumb is that you're always going to win more series than you lose if you want to be able to make the playoffs. Looking at what they have coming up here, before the middle of June, when it really starts to get to be baseball season. We've mentioned some of the other contests before, but again, at Washington this week, then next week, you're home to a Texas Rangers side that does not look any of the defending World Series champions that they should be. The Kansas City Royals after that, and then a dreadfully long 9-game road trip where you're at Houston, the New York Yankees, and the Pittsburgh Pirates, where you need to find wins on the schedule. They exist, but you cannot allow this spot to go any deeper than a 4-game losing streak, because this division, as Declan, you mentioned earlier this month, this division is stronger than I think anybody thought it was going to be. And especially as we get closer to that trade deadline, the other 4 teams in the division that are in that conversation are going to get stronger. And you, as Minnesota, have to continue to get strong with it.
Yeah, the Twins where they're at right now to that upcoming road trip that they're going to have here in about a couple of weeks. That's huge. Houston's playing a lot better ball after a really slow start. We don't even need to detail what happens when the Twins go to the Yankee Stadium. And the Pirates got off to also a better start than anticipated, and they're a little feisty team too. So finding wins in the schedule is huge. Not getting to swoons is obviously going to be a big thing for this club. And the Central, is drastically improved. The Royals look a lot better. The Tigers will kind of wait and see. The Guardians, they always outperform their expectation, man. Everyone always buries them, and everyone always says this is the year they're not going to do anything. Here they sit. They've been on top of the Central for basically 99% of the season. So, yeah, you can't afford another swoon. One more thing here on Score North Extra Innings. You can hit the like button, subscribe button, too, for extra innings content. Denard Span, speaking of center fielders, former center fielder Denard Span is here in Cleveland. He'll be on the Bally's call. I know a lot of people can't watch Bally's right now. I know that is frustrating. But for those who can, Denard Span, a familiar face, making his, I believe, Twins TV debut. He does TV work also with the Rays down there, and I think Fox Sports Florida. So a familiar face, Denard Span. Speaking of center fielders being back, the Twins got Byron Buxton back, and also for those that can watch, you'll be able to see Denard Span also in the television booth this weekend.
Yeah, and you think about, again, you don't want to go head over heels here, but think about the depth of center fielders that the Twins have had as their franchise centerpieces. Denard Span into Ben Revere into Byron Buxton has been quite the swing over the time. Denard Span was my all-time favorite Twins player. He has done such a great work with Rich Hollenberg and the family down there in Bally Sports, Florida, that I think he's going to do some really good work with Corey Provis on the TV side this weekend.
Yeah, man. Super excited for Denard. That's going to be awesome. Hopefully we'll be able to maybe catch up with him a little bit too. This has been Score North Extra Innings. Again, Byron Buxton back in center field. We'll see what the workload looks like for him going forward, but super excited. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. We'll be live tomorrow also on this YouTube channel and on the podcast feed. So rate us, give us 5-star reviews. It helps grow the show too. You almost have us at 3,000 subscribers. So it's mind blowing to me. So thank you so much for everyone for listening and watching Score North Twin Show. This is Score North Extra Innings. We'll be talking at you later this weekend.